Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 6 of the Shamans Cave. I'm Renee Barabo, known as the Practical Shaman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and we're so thrilled to have you on a new season with us as we talk about a very exciting topic. One of the issues that often comes up in spiritual work for people is how do I interpret the symbols that I get in my journeys, I get in my meditations, I get in my dreams. I keep on getting symbols, and people don't understand why do they keep getting symbols. But if you look at every spiritual text that was written, including the Bible, it's all written in metaphor. Everything is written in metaphor. All spiritual texts are written in metaphor. It's an unknown thing in the shamanic world that the spirits only speak to us in metaphor. They do not speak to us literally. And so this is how spiritual information has always been carried down. And so a lot of the metaphors often comes out in the symbols that are drawn, the symbols that were drawn on the old cave art and petroglyphs. It's not about literal, it's about a metaphor. And Carl Jung talked about how symbols change our unconscious. They speak to our unconscious. And so in some of my workshops, I actually have people draw a symbol of source or their spirit that is not literal. So, and to put it up in their room so that they could look at the symbol every day, because the symbol starts to work on their unconscious even without not having to take any action, not having to do anything. Changes happen because the symbol is working in an unseen way to transform you. And that's why I always try to get people to put up symbols that really inspire you and to look at them throughout the day, because you don't realize what's happening, but your soul, your psyche is working with this to create a change inside of yourself, a positive change inside of yourself.
When you were talking, and this doesn't happen very often, so I'm going to share it since we're talking about symbols. When you were talking, I was thinking about symbols, but then all of a sudden the symbol of the cross came in. And then all of a sudden the symbol of the cross turned into the rays of the light. I was like, really? Like, and then it seemed to be coming from the heart. And it was like, wow, that's really interesting. She's talking about symbols, and I'm having this symbolic experience going on about the love that's coming from you and the love that's coming from us, as reaching all of, and how we've organized our reality is by this, this idea of this, this compass and these four corners, but that really, that's the pinpoint of the light that comes out and surrounds us all. Don't ask me. I was like, wow, that's to me how spirit talks to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like, oh, Renee, I just want to tell you the story about this pinpoint in this. It was like, it was a visual experience of seeing that, and then seeing it come out from my heart and seeing it come out from your heart. And isn't that cool?
That was beautiful. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. I think the spirits kind of have fun with us sometimes around our ignorance about symbols and about metaphor. And I've told this story before on the Shaman's Cave, but my guardian spirit, who's been with me for 40 years and who I trust more than anybody in the planet, he came to me one day and he said, "You need to do more gardening." So I went out behind my house where I was living at the time. There was no way to do gardening. It was rock solid. Santa Fe is built on, it's just uranium. The earth is just uranium. You can't digging.
There's a symbol.
I need a spoon. I was going to use a spoon and dig.
I can see that. Oh.
And I ended up with these tiny little corns at the end. Anyway, so my guardian spirit comes back to me at the end of the summer and he goes to me, "Oh, I had so much fun watching you try to garden." I'm telling you to go out and garden. I'm telling you to look at your life as a garden, your clients as a garden, your workshops as a garden, and what were you planting in your garden for your clients and for your workshops. I was not telling you to go out and try to plant corn. So, the spirits, they play with us sometimes to see if we're going to get the metaphor and the watch us work as we struggle with it. And there's so many oracle cards out there, and I know Renee is doing some really beautiful stuff on the Shamans Cave right now with symbols. And the thing about these cards is they work on a way that awakens. It awakens a whole landscape of knowledge inside of you, just to look at the symbol without ever looking at the interpretation. And so spending a day actually focusing on a symbol is actually something that can be very transformative for you to try.
Mhm. Yeah, the wind is elusive. I mean, I think I've told the story about when the winds came and said, write a book about the wind. I'm there. I stood out there under the earth and I'm looking up at the sky and said, "You want me to write a book about the what? The wind? People hate the wind." And here I'm supposed to, bring it into a format that people were going to be able to, absorb, put into symbols, and then use in their lives. And so working on these cards has been really a transformative experience, because what I'm seeing every single day, and this is going to make me cry, is that, for 5 or 6 years, I've been talking about the wind, wind, wind. And all of a sudden I see people looking at these pictures and the light bulbs are going off. Oh my God, Renee, this is sharing my day that I'm having today. This is talking to me. The winds are blowing really strong in my life right now. And yet, it's been there all along, but to be able to put it into a format that people can then, like take into their own experience is what symbols do for us.
Exactly. Yeah, and symbols transform us, and that's what I love about them. I really love different spiritual practices and how different spiritual practices bring in some real ancient knowledge. Like, I was a tarot reader for so many years before I really focused on my shamanic work. That was what my clients came to see me. I taught shamanism, but for my clients, I read tarot. And they got it by looking at the symbols. They just got it.
Mhm.
I didn't even have to say that much. And then I started teaching tarot, and I tried teaching tarot from a very literal standpoint. This is what this card means. And then I tried a few workshops where we never looked at the literal symbols of the cards. I would have people journey into the card and ask the symbols what the symbols were trying to say. And God, what an amazing experience that was. And that's something that you could do if you have oracle decks or tarot cards at home. Instead of going to the booklet and looking up what the booklet says, sit with the symbol, journey into the symbol, become the symbol, do automatic writing as the symbol, and see what's coming up for you, or what wisdom is being shared. And I find that when you can do that, the wisdom being shared is so much more profound than anything that you're going to see in a book, because a book is written by a human. The symbols come from spirit. So very different.
I wasn't disciplined enough to learn, the whole system of the tarot. And many years ago, I was in a bookstore, and this woman was reading Deborah Koff Chapin's soul cards. And I loved it because they were just images. And so I bought a deck, and lo and behold, to this day, 30 years later, that's what I use for my readings. And now what's happened over the years is that the images on the cards have started to come. I've seen them enough time in certain people's situations that the meaning has come from, my connecting your experience with this card, so that it kind of duplicates over, hundreds of thousands of people that I've read for. And that's what that means for me. So, like, the truth be told, Sandra and I could both tell you, somebody asks you a question, you get the answer immediately. My clients would always say, well, what do the cards say, Renee? What do the cards say? You're not, so I have to shake up the cards, and, it'd probably be the information I already got anyway. But, it's those beautiful patterns or those colors. Sometimes I'll pull a card and I'll see something that I never, ever saw before. And I'm there like, oh, that's curious. So a few years back, she changed 2 of the cards out of the deck. And I just didn't really relate to the new cards. So I took the old cards from the deck that I used all those years, because remember, I'd given them meaning. So that's probably the same for some of you at home, that you've given your own things meaning. Mm-hmm. I tried to do the wind spirit cards for years, and somebody would say, oh, that's not what that wind spirit looks like to me, Renee. But now I sent the wind spirit cards to the same person who cried when she saw somebody else's wind spirit card. I said, whoever is doing these understands the wind. Mm. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, it's me, it's AI, it's, like whoever I'm going to have to draw these images that I go forward with. But I think maybe I do understand the winds because I've been working with them. And so pick one, like people who throw the bones, or, in the Quechua people, they use cocoa leaves. Right. It's whatever the symbols that work for you. I mean, take out your silverware drawer, throw your forks and spoons on there. You're probably going to start to find patterns, to find symbols.
Yeah, I did tell this story on another shaman's cave. I used to teach with a wonderful shamanic teacher who was Lakota, part Lakota Sioux, and lived out in nature for years and years and years. She had the most challenging life, and so just lived in a teepee by herself for years. And she was the most brilliant shamanic teacher on the planet because of her experience and her knowledge. And we used to teach workshops together, and we would just laugh and we would have fun. People used to show up for our workshops just to watch our relationship, and that was the only reason. Anyway, we used to teach divination workshops, and we used M&Ms. People up, and you did a life reading for people using M&Ms, and had you do that, based on the color of the M&Ms. You threw the M&Ms, like throwing the bones. What shape did the M&Ms come into? The most profound life readings. You can throw anything. You can get objects from nature and throw them, and just tune into what is your intuition saying about it. I know for myself that I trust symbols so much that when I'm just not getting any other information, I can't understand what my spirits are saying, nothing is making sense to me, the first place I go is to the tarot, because the symbols never lie. They never lie, so they tell me the truth, and I go, oh, that's what I was missing. And so when Woods and I have to make a really, really big decision, and I'm not sure if it's something I can journey on, I throw the tarot, and whatever the tarot says, I do. Because it's never wrong. The symbols really, the symbols are trying to give us wisdom. They're trying to give us wisdom. And so if we can just step aside and tap into them, they give us the roadmap that we're looking for.
Hmm. Last week I had a client call and she was deciding between pretty big careers choices. And, I start shuffling and throwing the cards and then all of a sudden, I gave her those answers. That was the easy thing. Then all of a sudden she goes, well, what about, and I threw a card and I'm there like, oh, and this whole other doorway opened up of something we weren't even looking for that day. She just wanted, well, should I go to company A, B, or C? And, and I do a lot of that for executives. I guess I've been good at that part. That's why I'm the practical. Oh, should I take this job? but it opened up this whole other spiritual avenue that wasn't part of the thing. So sometimes you're looking for one thing and something will show up as a symbol that will take you down a whole other road. The first time I ever really noticed the power of symbols was I went to Chaco Canyon, and I was young. I was like in my late 20s, and all of a sudden in the night, the tent woke me up. Come outside right now. And I'm like, I don't like to get out from when I'm warm. So I like crawled out, and it's like, the sky there is just incredible. And there was these 3 lines in the sky. And I'm there like, so I've spent a lifetime trying to figure out what those 3 lines meant. And so whenever I see something that's a 3, I know it's like something to question, something to pay attention to, and something that has meaning for me.
Right.
Never
Yeah.
did, that's the best that I ever got out of those 3 lines.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you just made a really, really important point is that although symbols have a collective um, meaning on a lot of levels, symbols will show up for us in nature, for us personally, and we do have to figure them out. And it can take years. It can take
Hmm.
time to figure out what it was that was being shown to you. And we have no patience as human beings. We just have no patience, and so we want it immediately. But it doesn't always work like that. And so, people are always putting pictures on Facebook about the sky that showed up for them. Well, those amazing images and symbols that showed up in the sky were for you. Did you sit down and look at what the meaning was, what the universe was trying to show you, what the universe was trying to lead you towards? We're being shown, we are being shown signs and symbols all day long, but we miss them. We miss them.
Hmm.
We're looking for something else, and the universe is trying to give us what we need, but our ego doesn't always accept what the universe is the gift that the universe is trying to bring to us. So,
I know in the Shamans Cave on Facebook, a lot of times people will say, what does this mean? What does this mean? Well, one thing you'll notice is Sandra and I never answer that question. Like, what's it mean to you? What if if this came up in my world, it might mean this, but it certainly doesn't necessarily mean that for you. And I think that self-trust, that belief that your own answers, like, so these 3, so throughout my life, whenever I see 3, it's like stops me. Okay. It's worked for me, but I never went and asked anyone else, what does that 3 mean? Although somebody the other night at dinner said, oh, us 3s, I guess I'm a 3, a manifester kind of creator too, but I don't know that that's what it meant that night either. There's 3s. 3s are 3s.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, life gets really interesting. I guess that's why I don't mind spending so much time alone because life gives so much to interpret and focus on. And it's like the river of life is always trying to play with us. And
Hmm.
it's always trying to help us move forward. And it's always trying to lead us somewhere. And the universe has a sense of humor, and so the universe oftentimes brings us symbols and brings us things that it's like, what? you know and so it is about having the patience to drop in. And I tell people, if they don't understand a journey, sit down and say, in my absolute wildest imagination, what could this possibly mean? And if you just start talking or just start writing, but just start doing something, it will come, and it will surprise you of, wow, this looks so simple, but yet it was the most profound piece of information I have gotten probably in all my years of doing this work. So it's a power that we oftentimes don't acknowledge.
Hmm.
Don't acknowledge the strength. We don't acknowledge how much we're being shown. We don't acknowledge the roadmap. Symbols are a roadmap to life. Symbols are a roadmap to life. And, what Renee's doing with the wind cards is the wind is showing a roadmap of life. And, and who doesn't need a roadmap right now? I know I do.
It's true, because I was writing involved in writing a book, and all of a sudden it's like this U-turn. I mean, not that the book is not going to get written, but it was like a U-turn. Oh no, no, don't leave before the miracle happens over here. And I think that's a good place to end this, is to ask you, what are the symbols that show up for you that stop you in your day and say, hey, pay attention. Do you have one? What, how do you know when you're moving into spirit talk?
Mhm.
I know, like for me, when my sweat leader died many years ago, all of a sudden I would see feathers.
Mm.
I'd see feathers when I knew I was on the right track. Like when I'd be questioning whether do I go forward with this, I'd see this big feather there, and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, thanks, Richard."
Right.
And that works for me. And it might not be Richard, but it's Richard in my heart.
Yeah, and a real simple example, too, is so many of you write about every time you look down at your watch, the same number comes up. Why does the same number come up every time that you look down at your watch? What is that number trying to say to you? That's a good thing to journey on. That's a good thing to work with. But I find that that's a common thing that people write about is every time they look at their watch, the same number comes up. So the universe is trying to give you a message. The universe is always giving us messages. The universe is always telling us, helping us. Our soul, of course, knows where to put our foot next, but the universe is also trying to help our egos and our mind to understand where to put our foot next. And it's just about, it's actually, it's, I'm not saying this in an unsacred way. It's about being willing to play with the universe and see where the universe is trying to take you.
I just have to end with this. When I said what I saw when you first started to speak,
Mhm.
and now everyone look over on Sandra's heart. There's this light heart on her heart. And, because there was this cross we were talking about and the light was going there. And then when she started putting her hand up, and there's an absolute white light over your heart. So I'm going to go with that as a symbol today for our next season.
Absolutely. Love is the answer for our next season. And we do love you. And thank you for joining us. And most importantly, thank you for supporting us by liking us on YouTube, subscribing to us, sharing the show with other people. We have a lot to offer, and if there's one thing that Renee and I will never shy away from is a tough topic or a tough situation in life. We're willing to take it on. So support us, because we are willing to give a different perspective on what's going on in the world, what's going on in life, and just like symbols are supporting you and the universe is supporting you, we're supporting you too. So thank you for joining us, and blessings to you and blessings to us as we start our 6th season together with all of you.